Alright, so this is going to be the start of my brand new sump. I currently have a 55-gallon sump underneath my 180-gallon tank that houses most of my Bashir, and I also have my Texas cichlid and my Oscar in there as well. I thought I did a lot of research and preparation when I built my original sump, but after building it and using it for a year, I was able to see the different pros and cons to my design, and I started making mental notes of all the things that I wish I could improve about it and make it a lot better. Since then, I've come up with a better design that should help with evaporation way better than my current sump, which means I can go longer between top-offs without risking my pumps drying out. I also have some upgrades to how I want to handle my mechanical filtration. I made a diagram on Microsoft Paint to give you a basic example on how I plan on setting up my baffles and mechanical filtration in a much more superior way than how I was doing it before. The first thing I need to do is get these stickers off the tank. Aquarium does this thing where they use this black text on the inside of the sticker, and sometimes that ink gets transferred onto the glass. And if that happens, you have to use some kind of cleaner to get it off. I like to use nail polish remover, but make sure you don't get it near your silicone or any of your seams. Luckily for this tank, I didn't have any of the ink transfer onto my glass, so we're okay to move on. So going back to the design on the screen, I'm not sure how much space I need for the very first section of the sump. So I'm going to use two PVC pipes that are identical to the ones in the sump right now, and I'll use them as a gauge to see how much space I'm going to need inside this first chamber. I'm putting some painter's tape around the sides just to make sure I don't have too much overspill from all the silicone when I press it in. Now it's time for the first beads of silicone on the build. I just carefully put it right up in between the seams, and anything that's extra is going to be fine because I just use my finger to kind of smooth it out. I make sure to do this on all the seams and make sure they're nice and clean. For the second baffle, the water is actually going to go underneath the baffle, so I use the cardboard box to kind of space it out, and I make sure to leave about a 1 to 2 inch gap across the top of the pane so that if there's any kind of blockage, the water would be able to flow over the baffle instead of overflowing over the side of the tank. A key part of the design of this sump is the ability to use pre-made 12x12 foam pads, so I don't need to do any cutting, and I know the second baffle is going to go exactly 12 inches from the first baffle. Now I can line the glass up with the marks I made on the side of the tank, and I keep the glass pane propped up on top of that cardboard box. I use this Aquarium Co-op sponge filter box just to kind of keep the glass pane nice and flush because it's a big flat surface. After that, I go ahead and I use my painter's tape just to make sure I get those nice clean edges like I did before. Just like the first baffle, I go ahead and squeeze the silicone into the seams, and it's going to be nice and clean because I have the painter's tape, and I'm going to be able to smooth it out with my finger, and it's going to look nice. I cut some PVC pieces here, and I'm putting silicone on both sides of them, and I'm going to place them near the sides of this chamber so they can hold up the egg crate shelf that I'm going to use to support my foam pads while leaving a passage on the bottom for the water flow to pass through. This next baffle is going to be pretty close to the second one, and nothing's going to go in between them, so I'm going to use a 2x4 just to get the spacing, and I'm going to clamp the glass to the wood so it's easy to secure it to the side of the tank. This next baffle is going to be shorter than the others, so I want to show you how I cut the glass. I clamp it down, and I only do one really good thorough pass. After that, I'm able to just snap it with my hands, and it should be a clean break. I went ahead and siliconed that third baffle in place up against the wood so it's nice and straight, and I used some of the tape to keep it in place. The next two chambers don't need a specific size, so I skipped the fourth baffle for now, and I marked out where I wanted the fifth baffle, leaving space in the last chamber for my pumps. I divided that second to last chamber in half, and I marked it before siliconing in the fifth baffle. Now I just need to secure the fourth baffle in place, and I use that box again to leave a gap on the bottom for the water to pass through. Now that all the baffles are in place, I'm going to pull out the rest of the tape while the silicone is still wet, and let the whole thing sit for about a week while the silicone completely cures. Okay, so it's been about a week, and I'm just going to go ahead and add my heater, my foam pads, and my biological media. When I swap this whole thing with the old sump, I'll take all the established biomedia, and I'll add it to that empty chamber on the right side next to the new biomedia. I'm gonna have to go get some help to get this sump underneath my 180 gallon tank, so make sure you subscribe for part 2 where I'll finish setting this up and I'll adapt my plumbing to fit into the sump. When part 2 is up, I'll have it linked in this video's description next to all of the links for the products I used in this build.